The year is 2023. The World Health Organization has declared the COVID pandemic to be behind us, and the age of scalpers has come to a close. While certain industries are still struggling to catch up to consumer demand as a result of the global chip shortage, Sony and Microsoft seem to finally be in a decent position. It's finally possible to walk into your local electronics store and pick up a PS5 off the shelf for MSRP. The evildoers who have hoarded early units for resale are suffering huge losses trying to offload their stock, and normalcy is returning to console gaming for the first time this generation. Unlike their less than impressive predecessors, the current offerings from Xbox and PlayStation are very capable for the price. For only $500 you can pick up a machine that is more than capable of running games at 4K 60Hz, and also a UHD Blu-ray player as a bonus, with the exception of those of you who opted for the digital-only version, which you definitely shouldn't have because the disc version of the PS5 is like $50 more and lets you buy used games for half the price of what they'd be on the PlayStation Store, but I digress. Even as a big proponent of PC gaming, I can't help but admit that consoles right now are probably a better deal for a lot of people than a custom-built gaming PC of equivalent spec. Now, before you claim I'm some kind of console fanboy, this is the PC I'm using right now, so please save your comments for something more constructive. Thanks to the upward trend in the price of PC components, it's getting pretty hard to recommend someone spend the cost of a PS5 just on their graphics card. As things stand today, for a lot of people without piles of disposable income lying around, it's probably more sensible to get a cheap laptop to do their taxes on and a PS5 to game on. So the current console gaming landscape is all sunshine and roses now, right? The new consoles are powerful and fairly priced, while also finally readily available for purchase. Well, I want to talk about something that I really haven't seen much discourse on. Such little conversation, in fact, that I'm honestly shocked. And that is the current position of the PlayStation 4 in 2023 and why it is now ultimately negatively impacting the greater gaming landscape. First released in 2013, the PS4 was basically handed a W from day one. Xbox had freshly pissed off everyone it possibly could have, and Sony was more than happy to accept its new fans with open arms. Sony learned from the mistakes of their previous console with its extremely difficult to develop for cell architecture, and opted for an AMD-based x86 chip, not unlike what you would find in a PC. Microsoft would notably also take this approach, allowing developers the world over to sigh a collective breath of relief. The PS4 would go on to crush its competition, outselling the Xbox One by 2 times, with units sold coming in at just over 117 million at the time of writing this video. This makes it the third best-selling home console of all time, only behind the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Switch. It takes a long time to develop and launch a new console generation. I'm sure that Sony and Microsoft had established their release windows far in advance of November 2020, and as a result were completely blindsided by the global pandemic that would take the world by surprise. The initial availability of these new systems was so scarce due to global supply chain issues that even a year later, most people had never seen one in person, let alone got the chance to buy one. Things got so bad that Sony established a lottery system, just so you could win the chance to spend your money. It's very common with every new generation for there to be a transitionary period with new games. It only makes sense for cross-gen titles to exist for a little while due to a large customer base with the last-gen system and people still trying to get their hands on the new one. With the events of 2020 and beyond, it's completely understandable for this crossover period to be longer than usual. From a business standpoint, you want your game to release to as many potential customers as possible, right? It could spell financial trouble if you were to jump the gun and limit your buyers to the handful of people who were lucky enough to get the new generation early on. I totally get why Sony would want a title like Spider-Man Miles Morales to release on both PS4 and PS5. Now, let's snap back to present day. The PS5 is in the hands of over 38 million people. That's more units than the Nintendo 64, GameCube, original Xbox, and countless other consoles sold over their entire lifespan, let alone 2.5 years. I think it's safe for devs to finally stop developing their games with the PS4 in mind. You see, the issue is that the PS4 was starting to get long in the tooth quite a while ago already. When it first launched, its processing power wasn't exactly blowing any enthusiasts away, and that was 10 years ago now. APU aside, the slow as molasses spinning hard disk drive is probably the biggest pain point. If you're playing an online multiplayer game like Call of Duty on your shiny new PS5 with that super fast SSD Sony always likes to brag about, you're not going to feel it. Why? Because half of your team or more is still on PS4, and even though you can load the match in 2 seconds flat, you'll still need to wait for everyone else to catch up anyways. Remember when we were being pitched the future of gaming from Sony? And one of their biggest points was that load screens would be a thing of the past.
So when I talked about the dream of an SSD, part of the reason for that 5 GB a second target was to eliminate loads, but also part of the reason for that target was streaming. As in, what if the SSD is so fast that as the player is turning around, it's possible to load textures for everything behind the player in that split second? If you figure that it takes half a second to turn, that's 4 GB of compressed data you can load. That sounds about right for next gen.
Well, that kind of feature simply doesn't work when the game has to also be played on a base PS4. An example I like to bring up of what games have the potential to be like is Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This is a PS5 exclusive, and it absolutely needs to be. It takes advantage of the very fast PS5 solid-state drive to enable world hopping seamlessly without having to stop the action for a load screen, all while looking very graphically impressive at the same time. Back when I played it in 2021, I got super excited for what the future would hold and expected many more experiences like it by now. Alas, these kinds of games are still extremely rare. Nearly every major release is still a cross-gen game, from Call of Duty to Elden Ring. Don't get me wrong, Elden Ring deserves its praise and is a pretty looking game. I just can't help but imagine what it could have looked like were it built for current gen hardware as a base. What's worse is that from what I can tell, there isn't an end to this in sight. We are still regularly seeing teasers for the future releases that confirm they will be releasing on last gen hardware. Next month we'll get Street Fighter 6 on PS4, and in August we'll even get the new Armored Core game on PS4. The only silver lining I have to look forward to is Tekken 8, which is confirmed to be a current gen exclusive, thank God, and you can definitely tell from the gameplay footage we have so far. What do you think about the current state of cross-gen gaming? Do you only own a PS4 and hope to play new games on it until you're in the retirement home? Let me know in the comments down below. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It would mean a whole lot to me, and when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a game room tour you won't want to miss. Until next time, thanks for watching.